Despite Donald Trump repeatedly insisting that there's not a bunch of clashes within his White House, there's not a bunch of conflict, and the officials he selected getting into beefs with one another, we get more and more stories to the contrary, right? Which is to say that while Musk, I'm sure, we talked about this in a different segment, is leaving the White House because he needs to figure out what's happening to his businesses in the light of backlash to his destruction of the government. And that we know this claim is not legitimate, which is that we always planned for him only to be there a very short period of time. Or he's done everything in Doge that he needs to do. All right. Well, in reality, I think a really big reason is that just people at the White House are annoyed with him. And now we have a story about a shouting match, which honestly, it's between Scott Bessent and Elon Musk. Both, I can't really picture them shouting. But first, last time Rubio was in a conflict with Musk, remember Trump was going, no, that's fake news.
Clashes eventually between Secretary Rubio and Secretary...
No clash. I was there. You're just a troublemaker. And you're not supposed to be asking that question because we're talking about the World Cup. Elon gets along great with Marco, and they're both doing a fantastic job. There is no clash.
But, Mr. President, bottom line...
Who are you with?
NBC.
Oh, no wonder. That's enough. NBC.
Who has more authority, Elon Musk or the cabinet secretary?
Any other questions about the World Cup?
So not super excited about answering for the fact that indeed there was reporting about Rubio losing it, I think was the phrase, at Elon Musk, because Musk was questioning Rubio's efficacy in implementing the policies that Musk wanted. Well, now we have this. By the way, while you're watching, please do click the subscribe button if you appreciate the show. Axios reports scoop: Musk versus Bessent dispute erupted into West Wing shouting match. Now, before reading you the specifics, remember that this is Scott Bessent.
And all this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded.
You might even say that he goaded China because this is the art of the deal. Do you not see? This is the golden age of America. You are living through it. This is what it feels like to win. So imagine Scott Bessent screaming at Elon Musk. And then Elon is... I kind of have the same accent for both, or the imitation of both of them. I am really angry at you. I can't even imagine them shouting. That's so weird. Elon Musk and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent got into a heated shouting match in earshot of President Trump, no clash, and other officials in the White House last week during a dispute about the IRS. 2 witnesses and 3 sources briefed on the matter tell Axios. It was 2 billionaire middle-aged men thinking it was WWE in the hall of the West Wing. One witness said of the argument last Thursday, and then it corrects. Not 2 billionaires. Bessent's net worth is only $520 million. Okay, thank you for that. The clash with both men in each other's face. I am very angry at you, Elon. You need to respect my authority. I am now goading you into attacking me. Showed how much Musk's personality and style have rankled some senior administration officials since he began running roughshod through agencies with Doge. The New York Times first reported Friday that Bessent and Musk had a disagreement over who would lead the IRS, but the chest-to-chest clash between the 2 men a day earlier has not been previously reported. They were not physical in the Oval Office, but the president saw it. And then they carried it down the hall. And that's when they did it again. They did it again. They're just doing it all over the White House. So the second, it was quite a scene. It was loud. And I mean loud. The doing it. They were doing it and it got very loud. Bessent and Musk. But it didn't get too physical. Asked about the shouting match, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt referred to comments she made to the Times about how it's no secret President Trump has put together a team of people who are incredibly passionate about the issues impacting our country. Disagreements are a normal part of any healthy policy process. And then someone else said, everyone thinks Doge is great, but Elon's antics are just a bit much. Do you remember whenever Musk called Peter Navarro, the tariff dude in the White House, what was it, like a dumber than a sack of rocks or something like that? I don't know if that's normal, but he said it publicly, normal discourse. And I think, Trump clearly was willing to give Musk a lot of power, but at some point, he's out there calling the guy who crafted the deal that Trump just rolled out. And Musk was saying he's a moron. He doesn't know at all what he's talking about with tariffs about Navarro. But Navarro is just an extension of Trump. And then separate from this, so Musk is feuding over the IRS with Bessent. Then you have Rubio feuding with Musk over how Musk thinks of, Rubio's handling of the State Department. But then you have Bessent and I guess it was Howard Lutnick secretly doing a coup against Navarro. So they went in the Oval Office to say, Trump, you need to release a lot of these tariffs. The economy's spiraling too much. I mean, they're not working as in sync on the same message and methods as they like you to think. Musk and Bessent had a choppy start to the presidential transition. All right, this is getting too much into the weeds. I don't care that much, but it is interesting to know about sort of the inner workings and why Elon, thank God, is on his way out. Then this was the New York Times report. Marco Rubio was incensed with Musk. Musk said, you hadn't fired anyone and you are doing all these things wrong. And then they got into it, and then Trump saw it, but then denied it, as you saw in that clip, because truth means nothing to him. Now, the extreme conspiracy theorist and right-winger Laura Loomer, who also happens to be a bestie of Trump's, said, yeah, all these denials that there's a lot of inner conflict are bogus.
I wasn't invited to that shit show known as Bindergate. What an embarrassment for President Trump that was. I'm glad I wasn't invited to that, but no, I don't get invited.
There was nothing in there. Yeah.
I mean, it's just a joke, it's a joke. And maybe some people don't want me around because I'll actually call this out, right? I'm not going to be a sycophant and sit there and pretend like every little thing that is done, is great. Like, oh, wow, let's put an island that doesn't have any human beings on it, that only has penguins inhabiting it.
Okay, and it seems that I've selected the wrong clip, but at a different part, she was talking about how there is a lot of conflict, and there she's just generally calling out the incompetence, which is strange given how much she loves Trump. Because I agree that there's a lot of incompetence, moronic decisions that are going to prompt inner conflict, egos clashing. But that's all a byproduct of the guy at the top, right? I mean, often, say what you want about Biden. Often people would say that the concerns around his age proved that it must have been all the people around him actually doing the stuff, doing the leading that led to a pretty productive term. But at some point, the buck stops with you, and even surrounding yourself with the right people who are effective, who know what they're doing, and who are competent is a sign of your leadership, which Trump is clearly really bad at, because he either stands by people who are terrible or calls disgraceful people he hired but he had to push out because they actually had some integrity. Then Bannon here has more to say.
It seems to me that Bessent has maybe
Bessent
become... Do you think he is now the most important player on that economic team? I mean, is he now basically the guy running the economy?
Well, not running the economy, but he's a safe pair of hands. President Trump's a very sophisticated businessman, but Scott is a safe pair of hands that understands capital markets deeply. He's done this for 30 years. He has a very strong sense of what markets need to hear as far as information go. Okay? Remember, the first fight, besides the H-1B visas and transhumanism, the first big fight we've had with Elon was over Elon pushed Howard Lutnick, and Bannon in War Room pushed Scott Bessent, and that got very nasty in Mar-a-Lago. They leaked all kind of stuff about Scott that was not true. And at the time, I said, for what President Trump's trying to do on trade, on tariffs, on taxes, on national security, you're going to need a steady Eddie, a rock, that the markets can sit there and go, that guy's telling me the truth. I may not like it, but he's telling me the truth. That's Scott Bessent. And I'll be blunt. If Howard Lutnick had been Secretary of the Treasury, it would have been an unmitigated disaster. Okay? Unmitigated disaster. And this is about people putting their own interests first, like Elon, versus putting the nation's interests first.
Well, thank you, Steve.
Admitting Elon's putting his own interests first. Admitting that Lutnick would be a disaster, and Lutnick's currently the Commerce Secretary. But they never connect the dots, though. Okay, Steve, I agree. Lutnick's an unmitigated disaster. Elon's doing things in his own interest. I don't agree that Bessent says it like it is. Did you see that clip? Actually, Trump was intending on it. We can't. The funny thing was, even after saying we had decided 3 days ago, even after saying that, Trump came out and said, no, I just decided this. So he disproved what Bessent said. So Bessent's not steady Eddie. He's steady Eddie, as Steve called him, who will give people confidence in the economy. How's that working? Consumer confidence at a historic low. But I do agree that there's some real low character, low quality people in the Trump administration. Who hired them all? Trump did. But Steve will never, ever acknowledge that Trump is to blame. Your administration is you. That's how we do politics. Is it oversimplified? Sometimes, but that's how we do it. You hire people, then you are responsible for them. And it's never Trump's fault. It's always the deep state. You think Elon, at one point he called him, what did he call him? Like a parasitic illegal or something. Bannon has called Elon all these things. Satanic or whatever, things like that. And he never can, but Trump gave him all this power in the government, and you don't blame him for that? You're crazy. Now, we can't move on without marking today as, I think it's 5 years ago today, that this happened.
I'm going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
And after, hi aliens, if you just got to the earth, let me explain what happened. After a U.S. president, which shorthand is a really powerful person. Okay, thank you. During a pandemic, a U.S. president pontificated about using disinfectant and UV lights inside of the body to get rid of COVID, leading to people trying it. Nothing like a UV light butt plug. And okay, sorry. Don't worry about it. You don't know what that is, aliens. Let me explain. So people in their butts. No, after Trump had suggested that, and that's how he was handling a pandemic while saying, slow the testing down, we made him president again. Isn't that weird? I know it's weird. I don't get it either, but that's what we did. Weird. Share your thoughts in the comments.